Hello and welcome into A Jew and Muslim Walk Into a Podcast for our third episode, in which we dive into all the chaos and insanity of our world right now. That's probably not the right introduction, but everything's fucking crazy. Bill
Hey,
Siddish, how are you?
Zack, I'm good. How are you? So good to touch base again. I know we've been kind of all over the place, justifiably so. But we got a lot to talk about. It is May 9th, 2025, and a lot has happened since the last time we spoke. Tell me, what are your general feelings? Where are you today? What things have transpired that are on your mind? I mean, I got a list of stuff that we could talk about, but I want to hear from you first. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'll say this. It's it's an interesting situation, and I hope you don't mind us sharing what came up in our group chat a little bit with,
Absolutely.
other Arab and Palestinian colleagues. I think allowing that depression, the shock of everything occurring is something that I'm experiencing now, and as it's a weird thing because in my sphere, right, which is a little bit this wellness trauma sphere, it's always about a little bit like look away or don't take on the problems of the world, don't absorb it. But I notice for myself, like there's no way that I am not going to be emotionally impacted by what this is. Like children being murdered in cold blood by people of my own ancestral line. Like how the fuck does that not affect me? Like how does that not hit me? Like it goes against every nature, every ingrained nature of what it is to be a human being who has just a modicum of empathy and compassion. And so, bro, I'm fucking sad.
Right.
Like, and I could give you all the news updates right now, but like I had to sit with this like this last week of like I'm sad, like I'm feeling the weight of it. I'm starting to really just let myself be with it, right? And it was really good for me to come on and see our group chat, and others were posting it like, do you feel depressed? And I was like, oh, thank God, like I'm not alone. And that made me feel better that like, okay, this is allowed to impact us and affect us because how the fuck could it not? Shouldn't be cursing as much, but that it's okay that we're in this together. You know what I mean? We're not a kumbaya, but yeah. What
No,
about you?
you're absolutely right. I mean, look, as a natural empath, as someone who decided to publicly speak up for Palestine and now Kashmir, even, we are inclined to feel people's pain. We are inclined to feel people's grief. You can try to be stoic as possible. You can try to block it out, but at some point, it gets to you. It's
Yeah,
consuming. And it can affect really everyday parts of your life. I mean, I felt this low level subchronic depression, and I'm very open about it.
yeah,
People, even in ethnic households, Muslim households, Arab households, Desi households, depression is seen as a weakness almost
yeah,
as like a
yeah,
lack of faith,
yeah,
right? That,
yeah,
oh, you don't have faith that everything's going to be okay or everything is going to be fine. But the truth is, it's very normal. It affects all of us at some point. And talking about it is actually one of the first steps to get out of it. Ignoring it and acting like it's not happening makes us no better than the people that just go about their day acting like our tax dollars really aren't funding the genocide of children. I think, see, that's the crazy part about for me is the general Americans like, well, this doesn't affect me. Like I don't really, care about politics, but it does affect you.
yeah,
You pay for it. You
yeah,
directly are
yeah,
affecting it.
yeah,
Whether you realize that or not, the money that is being taken out of your paycheck monthly, biweekly, is literally funding this.
yeah.
And if that doesn't bother you, wow, like what does bother you? You guys get mad over food stamps and Medicaid and funding like, public health care, but
Yeah,
this doesn't bother you?
yeah.
That's what blows my mind. And, what are your thoughts about all of it?
Oh God, I don't want to be overly pessimistic, right? But like when you're not even able to meet baseline survival needs with what a lot of Americans are going through, like I watch like their brain and body can't even step outside of that, you know? And America is, we got to be honest, we're also running into cultural issues here. Like America is highly individualistic. Like we are in this hyper capitalist consumerist society. So everything is about me, 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 me. And we feel disconnected from what our government's doing. But I feel like in the background, a lot of Americans are going through like an existential crisis or like this this malaise, this melancholy. Because, yeah, when your government is actually funding the genocide of children, you are directly involved. And even if your mind is not making that connection, it is actually impacting you, like it is. Whether you're reconciling and acknowledging what's really happening inside or not, like it is hitting you. So I think most Americans are in denial. I think they're kind of in this extreme survival based mode or paradigm. And you also just have a lot of people that still support Israel. You have a lot of Americans that still support Israel. I'm going to
The
say something.
boomers,
What's that?
the boomers
Rumor? Yeah. I mean, yeah,
are,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I don't know what it is about that generation. It's because I guess they just grew up being told, oh, America can do no wrong. We beat Germany. And to feed into the narrative that Israel isn't doing the right thing means what happened back then wasn't the right thing. And that means what they've been told their whole lives was a lie. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, in a way, I think they're incredibly ignorant. Yes, but I also, at the same time, the pitfalls of being an empath, understand why they feel that way,
Well, it's also the ostracization that you'll undergo, especially like, older members of our society. Like if you are to speak out against Israel, like the claims that you're immediately anti-Semitic to do so. So, I just think there's also this need to like fit in, especially amongst like traditional Catholics and Christians. But yeah, I hope you don't mind because I want to get a little bit personal in today's podcast and
absolutely.
jump right in for those watching and listening. Yes, I am in the spiritual trauma healing sphere, and I have never done ayahuasca up until 2 weeks ago. And
Explain to us what is ayahuasca, because I
so,
have no idea what that is.
okay, ayahuasca is the most powerful psychedelic in the world. Um,
So it's like shrooms or
It's
LSD?
true. It's shrooms times a lot. So
Okay. Yeah.
it initially comes from Peru. It is considered obviously an extremely like natural, powerful psychedelic. I do think it's often misused or bastardized in the West. Like people go and use ayahuasca because they want a certain experience or they want to heal it in their business. When realistically, it's something that you ingest and you let go, and it shows you something. Some people have very out of body, visceral, spiritual, ethereal experiences. Some people, quote unquote, meet God through taking this medicine. Other people are taken into trauma, or are uncovering layers of themselves, or is able to retrieve like forgotten, like repressed memories. So it really runs the gamut. But you go into a medicine like this typically because you feel called to it. Like I've never felt called to it up until recently. And you really have to let go and surrender into being shown something that you don't know what's going to happen. And the whole point of powerful natural psychedelics such as psilocybin mushrooms or ayahuasca, when used correctly, is it's supposed to take down those walls that we build in our mind to protect us, to make us sure we don't look at things or see things, to keep us stuck in a very rigid ego construct.
Right.
Ayahuasca rips that away. And it's like, okay, this is what you've been hiding from. All right. So I will say that the moment I signed up to for ayahuasca, it was like over like a month and a half ago, right? But I signed up for it a month before the actual ceremony. And things just got really dark for me. My thoughts were very dark. I started feeling very helpless, powerless, lifeless. And as someone who's in a sphere where it's my career to help people, quote unquote, feel better or navigate this terrain, it was really difficult for me to have such a difficult experience, internally. I was definitely falling into depression, and even a little bit of suicide ideation, to be fully transparent. And so I'm just like, what is going on that it's getting this dark,
Right.
right? So the morning of ayahuasca, you're supposed to set an intention with the medicine. And so I did it with my girlfriend and my other close friend who is German, and that's gonna be part of our story. And
Okay.
so I set an intention, and I was just like, I've been feeling down lately. I want to feel all the good feelings. Everything's been so dark and bad in this world. I want to feel unconditional love. I want to feel like the interconnectedness of everything. I want to be in my love and light mode. I want to be feeling all the good stuff, right? So the ceremony begins. You take this shot of this plant, okay? And initially, I started feeling good. I started feeling a little joyful. I'm like, okay, like this is nice. Okay, like I need to be uplifted here a little bit. And then it was like a light switch just flipped, and I was on the ground in seething terror and pain and horror. I was throwing up and purging and sweating and just on all fours, like even screaming at times.
It sounds terrifying, by the way.
It was horrible. It
Yeah,
was
like,
fucking terrible. And so,
like, it's a
and
life changing experience. I was like, yeah, it definitely sounds like one. So,
yeah, yeah. I mean, some people would call it a bad trip, right?
yeah, right,
And
right.
then so, and I say this, and obviously, like for those who listen to our podcast, like, yeah, I'm gonna talk about things that are a little bit more outside the box and spiritual with what happened here. Okay, this falls outside the line of what you would call conventional medicine. And so it was about 2 hours in, and I still had no idea what this was tied to. But I was feeling these feelings of being like of people leaving me or betraying me or flipping on me and just coming at me. I'm just like, oh God. But you feel that raw, visceral terror. So
Right.
it took 2.5 hours, and then the ceremony lasts up to 6, 7, 8 hours. But 2 hours in, I was finally like, what childhood trauma am I recovering? What did I repress in childhood that's coming up now? And finally, something spoke back to me. Whether it was the plan or something, I don't know, but it felt like something spoke back to me. And I heard, I'm going to use these words, you're releasing the entity of Zionism from your ancestral lines. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? What in the hell
Right.
is that? And I heard you are releasing the root of what has created Zionism amongst your ancestry. Okay. And I will say, man, I've been in doing work with alternative forms of medicine and trauma releasing and even some forms of purging to get things out of your system. Like healing Jewish trauma has been a huge part of my experience and process. I think it's what's put me in a position to show up effectively right now and be able to speak from a nuanced way. Okay,
Right.
so I just want to get out of that way. What I started experiencing was the Holocaust. And I was feeling into the fact that, like, first off, this is like the biggest release and purge I've ever had.
I believe it.
I've never experienced horror and terror like that. But I felt how this unprocessed trauma that all Jewish people are carrying has created this collective ideology, like that runs through all of us, that is to hide us from like this unresolved shame, this unresolved humiliation, right? And this complete assault to selfhood, to a sense of self. Okay. And it felt I hate using this word because we're going to go wooey, but it felt like I was releasing something demonic. I don't, whether that's real or not, who knows, but it felt like something was releasing out of me. Uh, and it was ancient. And slowly I started experiencing like moments of the Holocaust. Like I started getting visuals. I started seeing what that was. You know, people being murdered and put and just like kind of carted away. Nazi soldiers coming up and just shooting you in the head, and you feel the horror. And I felt this feeling coming up of like, how do humans do this to each other? Like, how do human beings could do this to one another? What is the breakdown in the human psychology that you can do this and feel nothing to another individual? And I felt all this unresolved grief and just loss come into my heart. And in that moment, I had my German friend right next to me. And I thought to myself how much I love my German friends. I have another German that works for me, and I was like, oh my God, like I don't think of them differently. Like I forgive you guys. Like I forgive you for what you've done. Okay. And it was this really beautiful moment of just there being some type of internal reconciliation, and you're just feeling yourself come back more to yourself, right? But I almost felt I just like I said, it's gonna sound crazy, but this is my experience while in this medicine. It's felt like my ancestors started moving through me and communicating to me. And the first thing I heard was like, don't let this happen to Palestinians. Like, don't let our unresolved trauma, our unresolved wounding be projected onto another. And I just believe that intergenerational trauma is a real thing. Collective trauma is a real thing. And we and you have talked in a couple episodes prior to this about how Jewish people have not healed from the trauma of the Holocaust. And that is running us right now. Okay.
That's 100% true, by the way.
And
100.
it does not excuse it. It does not justify it. Like this is, but we have to get to the source of what is allowing us to be so disconnected from empathy and compassion for another, and to be continuously spiraling in these victim complexes where we're not able to perceive anything clearly.
Right.
And it's because this thing is rooted in the subconscious and is running us, right? Zionism at its heart is ethno-supremacy. Ethno-supremacy, this feeling of I am better, I am chosen relative to another, comes because we feel so empty and devoid on the inside. We
Right.
feel at such a loss. We feel so low. So until that is healed, until that is recognized, that we say, oh my God, we are carrying this thing. Of course, we felt so low and so humiliated, right? And honestly, it's not ours to carry. We should not have to carry this. What happened to us should never have been done. It should never be done to anyone. But we are in a trauma response. We are overcorrecting, and we have created this ethnocentric empire that is running, I don't even know the words, but has lost sanity to degrees that can't even be fathomed. And until Jewish people get in and reconcile this in their system, until they reconcile it in their nervous system, in their psyche, we are going to be in some type of mass psychosis. Because that's what happens when the system is overactivated by an unprocessed trauma. You lose your fucking mind, and you can no longer connect to other people in a healthy mechanism. And that's what I've just seen from Jewish people. So I've been in a process over the last 2 weeks where I've just been allowing like a lot of emotions and feelings that don't even feel like they're mine. They're tied to something before me that preceded me, and letting it move through. But I know from talking to other Jewish colleagues, they've had similar experiences when utilizing psychedelics or entering into transcendental states. And until we heal this or reconcile it, like, we're going to self-destruct, because that's what happens when you commit genocide upon another. It dehumanizes you more than even those that you're oppressing, right? And I just want to leave that story there, but that was an experience for me. I'm still making sense of it. And I will say this, if I came into that medicine with not the intention of diving into anything relative to Palestine, Israel, and yet that was what I was shown and given, and it was related into the psychology of Zionism and what perpetuates and creates that.
Right. No, 100%. I appreciate you for sharing that. That is a intimate experience. And a lot of people, they'll write off psychedelics. I'll tell you from a
Yeah.
medical lens,
Yeah.
people are starting to prescribe microdosing in,
Yeah.
in, in the medical world. So that's
Yeah.
not something that's so outlandish that you sure you just didn't have a bad trip or something.
Yeah.
No, and I've heard this before. I've heard this argument that's like, oh, it's a defense mechanism. It's almost like we don't have a collective trauma. We're just standing up for ourselves. We're finally doing what we should have done. If you didn't have a collective trauma, you wouldn't feel compelled to act in this way. That's
Oh,
the
100%.
truth, like
Yeah.
and we see it all the time. We don't have to look to Israel for examples. I mean, you see it in everyday life.
Yeah.
A woman grows up without a father in her life, so she seeks validation the rest of her life from random men, right?
Yeah.
Or a boy grows up without his mom, and so he has, you know, commitment issues because he doesn't know if a woman could be there for him. I mean, you see this stuff
Yeah.
every day. It's not like, whoa, that's kind of out there.
Yeah.
We know we can experience it individually.
Yeah.
Why is it not that crazy to think we can experience things as a larger population in a group? And so I agree. I think Jewish trauma has been pretty much almost taken advantage of to justify the things. It's in a
Oh, for
way, it's,
sure.
well, we went through all this shit. And
Yeah.
because of that, we are allowed to do what we can, and
Yeah.
we're better because they told us we were not
Yeah.
even worthy of being human. Well,
Yeah.
we have to supersede that, and we have to say, no, not only are we human, we're better than you. So
Yeah.
it levels out
Yeah.
that Nazi ideology that they had to deal with. But no, I completely agree with you. I think the more I've heard, and honestly, I'd heard of kind of collective Jewish trauma, but it wasn't until we had our specific discussions and I learned more so your perspective and
Yeah.
how you were able to find that out on your own
Yeah.
entirely, and then it
Yeah.
all clicks. Look, this is the best theory. People can ask, I've been asked this question quite a bit. It's like, how could they do that? How could the Israelis kill children and women like that point blank and not care.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not a normal human
No.
like reaction or
No,
response.
it's
This
not.
is 100% a overreaction to a trauma. And it
Yeah.
is from a trauma. It's not
Yeah.
that long ago either. It wasn't hundreds and hundreds of years ago. It was within the past 100 years. And so some people's grandparents went through that shit. And, just like we're seeing in Gaza right now, this these feelings, this angst of anxiety will go on for generations and
Yeah.
decades. But to act like it doesn't exist, to act like, oh, this all bullshit, we're just making this up, that is an injustice because it does exist. And not
Yeah.
just from a spiritual wellness lens, but from a medical
Yeah.
perspective, from a scientific perspective, all of that shit exists.
Well, and
And
I want to interject real quick, right?
sure,
Because
sure.
like, a husband that beats his wife, right? Um, what do you think his dad did?
Dad probably was either very aggressive or beat his wife,
Yeah.
so his
Yeah.
mother. So
When I remember reading a statistic of like those who commit child sexual abuse, about like 80% of them were victims themselves, you know? Um, so I mean, and this is a fundamental understanding that I think is so missing from mainstream society, right? That when you go through an experience, you are much more likely to re-perpetuate that experience. Even if you're a victim, you are likely to be the abuser down the line to normalize it to the psyche. If the
100%.
psyche cannot process the absurdity, the pain, the insanity of what you went through, you will carry it out onto another to normalize it. Okay. So a lot of abusers were abused themselves. And so we're not addressing this or looking at it through this lens. And we are, and it is, and now we have a genocide of children, right? And so a lot of it, I do believe, is like the psyche of these people trying to normalize an experience that preceded them. And but you watch the light go off behind the eyes sometimes when you talk about this stuff. It immediately goes, we're defending ourselves with it, and it's like you're fucking not. Like how does murdering children defend you? What the fuck? Like this makes no logical sense. Like this is beyond the realms of logic, but that's trauma. That's unresolved trauma. And so, I almost like think of what happened in Nazi Germany like almost like a parasite, okay? In terms of like it goes on to someone else and it's just kind of going from person to person, like deconstructing the psyche, deconstructing the immune system, allowing it in, and it's like a loss of humanity. It's a loss of sense of self. And I'm telling you, like, I know that Jewish people feel persecuted right now. I'm not here to say that, like, there was a whole incident in Barstool in Philly where there was a whole fuck the Jews. I'm not here to say that there are not real elements of like anti-Semitism here, but I do not think that is remotely the focus. I think the focus is that you have an ethno-state tied into Judaism carrying out genocide onto children, and we're not doing anything about it.
That's
And
so true.
yeah,
It's so funny. They're like, anti-Semitism has risen this much. My question is, why?
why?
Why has it risen? Why is no one talking about that? And then there's no answer, right? I'll tell you right now, it's the Israeli government. They are
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
hurting Jews around the world by affiliating themselves and saying, if you don't like us, you're anti-Semitic. American politicians are making it worse by also going along with that agenda and saying, if you don't support Israel, you're anti-Semitic. No, you can't. A government can't own a religion, especially a specific, highly
Yeah,
conservative neo-Nazi-like government can't say
yeah,
we are the Jewish religion as a whole, and if you don't support us, you don't support Judaism. That
yeah,
is insanity to me. And so, like, when we say why is anti-Semitism risen, and I think I was reading the Harvard report that came out on anti-Semitism and Islamophobia that Elise Stefanik, who is a monster, I call her the Cookie Monster because she just gets on the podium and starts saying everyone's anti-Semitic. She's like Apex #1 puppet. But
yeah,
she was saying that, oh, these are so horrific. These statistics are damning. But when you looked into what were the claims of harassment in the dossier, it was feeling uncomfortable walking on a sidewalk by an encampment or feeling uncomfortable when this topic was brought up in class. It wasn't someone shoved me to the ground and started beating me and calling
yeah,
me, all these slurs. It was,
yeah,
I felt uncomfortable. Well, I just think it's so weird that in America we're talking about, oh, you feel uncomfortable, but we're killing kids, man. It's just kind of like, I don't know how we get here, like people
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
oh, but dude, that's gonna make them feel uncomfortable. Your money is killing children, like in cold blood. I've seen, and we're not supposed to see this shit. I really think this last year and a half has fucked with our brains so bad. I've seen kids killed
Yeah.
every way possible, man.
Yeah.
I've seen kids without limbs, brains hanging out,
Yeah.
bones, blood vessels. What do you think that does to a human brain? We talk about PTSD. What about consistent PTSD?
Well, and I don't know if there's a conversation for now. No, I feel like we can talk about it now. There's not enough research or information on the nature of vicarious trauma through social media. I've talked to Palestinian colleagues who say that they won't touch the videos of that stuff, right? Obviously, you have, and I've talked to others who have seen it viscerally. I've seen a few, and for whatever reason, that was enough for me to land into what's been happening. I do think that it is creating a collective trauma as well because we've never seen live images of war to this degree, and it's not war, it's genocide on children. And so
Here's an
it's
interesting.
yeah,
Let me run this by you
yeah,
because I was thinking about what you told me, how it felt like it was almost like a demon of
yeah,
trauma that was
yeah,
leaving your
yeah,
body.
yeah,
It's almost like it has to go somewhere, right? Just
yeah,
like let's bring it back to science. We know that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can
yeah,
only be transferred from one medium to another.
yeah,
Great example is water, right? It can
yeah,
become ice or it can become vapor, but that specific amount of water always
yeah,
stays somewhere. And so if we talk about the energy, the feeling, the collective trauma,
yeah,
it's almost like let's start
yeah,
at the beginning.
yeah,
Germany went
yeah,
through that shit after World War One.
yeah,
Their country was brutalized,
yeah,
taken to the point of exhaustion. That let someone like Adolf Hitler come into
yeah,
power because
yeah,
people were so desperate. I remember reading that people were carting around wheelbarrows full of dollar bills, and the
yeah,
wheelbarrow cost more than the dollars in the wheelbarrow itself.
yeah,
And so it was a really hard time. They went through their own traumas. They had a lot of loss and suffering in World War One.
yeah,
And it's almost like they took out all of that personal distress onto the Jews of Europe
yeah,
at the time.
yeah,
Jews of Europe took all of that personal trauma, moved to Israel, and now you're seeing it moved on to Palestinians. And it's like
yes,
Palestinians are the new inheritors of this collective trauma. And so
yes.
whereas it's a cycle. It goes it's just like abuser to abuser to abuser to abuser. And it's like, where is it going to go next almost? That's a question to ponder, you know?
Well, and so, but here's the thing, whatever. And I think this is the medicine that we're missing, okay? Because it's like we have to make sure it doesn't transfer. Okay. And so when you think of an illness, when you think of a cold or a flu and how it's transferred from person to person, typically the weaker the immune system, right, it's able to go into the other person more easily. Okay. So, like, how do we make sure this doesn't end up on Palestinians? We build up the immune system, meaning that see what happened to us, see what we became from this, right? And don't let this underlying pain stay stagnant. Yes, you are right to be fucking angry. Yes, you're right to have rage. Yes, you are right to have grief. Like, deal with it, right? Like, in terms of allowing the space to process it, and that's on us in the West to continue to give you space to process it, to be seen, to be experienced. Because you're right, energy is not created or destroyed; it goes somewhere, but it can be transmuted. Okay, and so it's also Jewish people's responsibility too to handle our shit so it doesn't get projected. There is a reason why in my ceremony I found forgiveness and love for my God, the German friend sitting right next to me, right? Because that is changing the chemical composition of that experience, right? It is starting out as a trauma and it is turning into an experience of like reconciliation, okay? And that is what I feel allows it to not be transferred.
No, 100%. I think, you have to start thinking with the lens of, well, if you continue to do the things that were done to you, you are no better than the people that did it to you, you
Yeah,
know? And then it's how do you switch that perspective? And that's going to be an issue that we deal with in the Palestinian world for the
yeah,
next God knows how many years. That's
yeah,
something that I find, it's easy for me sitting in America, being an American. citizen, born here, to kind of say these things. It's definitely different when you're born and
Yeah.
raised there and you've seen everything stripped away from you. I understand it's hard. It's easy for you and I to sit back, be the armchair intellectual and be like, you should feel this way.
Yeah.
It's totally different to be the actual person going through
Yeah.
this shit, you know?
Yeah.
And same thing goes with the Jews of Israel. Like, it's the same feeling, right? Like, we can break down the science to a T. We can say this isn't healthy. You need to do this. And it can all go in one ear and out the other if you're actually living and you've experienced that trauma. But
Yeah.
how do we, even just this small podcast, start a process of reconciliation to the point of where we realize, hey, murder is bad,
Yeah.
killing each other is bad. No one is better than each other, regardless of what their religious beliefs say,
Yeah.
regardless of what they feel about their specific ethnic group. That's not right. I don't subscribe to that. And how do we go from there? That's the reality. That's the true question we ask. Because look, whatever happens in Gaza and Palestine right now in this moment in time, I'm thinking, where are we going to be in 10 years? Where are we going to be
Yeah.
in 20 years? Because if Netanyahu is successful in pushing all those 2 million people out, you have created the next group of 2 million people or
Yeah.
millions of people that are going to be resentful, that are going to carry this trauma, that God forbid might pass it down to God knows who else, you know,
Yeah.
because that seems to be the trend here, which is so
Yeah.
interesting. I never thought of that until
Yeah.
we had this discussion here today of how this is a collective trauma, but not only is it a collective trauma, it's an old trauma. It's
Yeah.
a trauma that's existed, what seems to be in human civilization for years. And you've seen it passed down to the Germans, from the Germans to the Jews, from the Jews to the Palestinians. Who is it coming to next? We don't know. But it's interesting that it is something, it's almost like you said, it's like a disease.
Yeah.
Anyone can get it, any group of people can get it, and it can totally ravage the mind to a point of psychosis, to a point of I can shoot a child in the face and it's justified, you
Yeah.
know, which is not, look, I don't care. I don't care what you believe. That's just, it's not right to kill children, especially point blank. It's just, I don't think there's any justifiable
There's
reason,
never any. There's never
you
any.
know?
Zero. There's
And so
zero.
it's just kind of like, how do you get convinced that's okay? You're not in your right state of mind. That's how, you know,
Well, it's something in you feels perpetually unsafe, right? And then propaganda is able to get into
feed.
you, feed into you that you feel so unsafe. What will keep you safe is through dehumanizing another, to not see them as people. These people are the ones keeping you unsafe, and you just and that capacity to be remotely connected to your humanity goes offline for anyone that extends beyond your own cultural ethnic group, you
So
know?
true. That reminds me like a few weeks ago when Elon Musk was just fucking up the country royally at Doge and he got on, you know, the news and was like, I think the weakest part of Western society, what makes them weak is their empathy. And I thought, well, that is such a shame that you have someone saying this because you want to ask me personally what made the West so strong, what made America at one point in time the most respected country in the world was that people believed that they had genuine empathy for the human race, that they cared about your freedoms and your liberties, and that every man deserves the pursuit to happiness and
Yeah,
justice, peace. But to say now that no, just some people deserve that if you're rich enough.
yeah,
Which is, to me is anti-American, right? But
yeah,
now you got some guy in our government who's leading some of the top offices thinking like this, that empathy is
yeah,
bad. Empathy is bad. This is the problem. This goes back to when we talked about in our like, you know, second episode where they're talking about we got to run this like a business. We got to run this like a business. The government's not meant to be a business.
yeah,
It's a service. It's a
yeah,
service. And if you want to get analytical about it, yes, you have to crunch numbers. Yes, you have
yeah,
to save where you can. Okay. Maybe in that regard, it's a business. But
yeah,
thinking of what I can do with the money given to me for the greater good of people is a service, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So, I mean, it's just a strange time. I say we pivot a bit because we got a few minutes left. Let's talk about recent topics,
Okay,
right? Let's
yeah.
talk about
No,
what's.
actually, I wanna just interject real quickly. I
Yeah,
do,
go
and
ahead. No,
I maybe
go ahead, finish.
maybe we don't have time for maybe this episode just ends here because we only have like 8 minutes left, and there's gonna
That's
be
true. Yeah, maybe
yeah,
we do. Maybe this was
yeah,
like an introspective episode, right?
yeah, for sure,
So,
bro. I mean, well, it's important right now, and I think it's important of like I said, what's the purpose of the work we're doing right now? You said like, what us with a small podcast, how do we stop what's going on? It's not my place, maybe I definitely misspoke earlier when I said, hey, Palestinians should do this. It's not my place to say that, or ever as a Jewish man, right?
I never, by the way, felt that
Okay. Yeah.
you never felt like you said Palestinians need to
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
No,
never felt that at
it's
once.
not
And
my, I don't want to come
just to
across, that's not
clarify,
my place.
just in case anyone's listening,
Yeah.
I don't remember an instance where that was said. So go ahead, keep going.
But no, but it's, how do we stop this? Like, we have to help people find the source of what's cool. I think the work that you're doing online to raise awareness, to call everything out is so important. And I also think in terms of how do we stop this in the long run? There's only so much, this train's rolling. I feel like there's only so much we can do in the immediate term. Like, we got to balls to the wall to do what we can in the immediate term, but we have to make sure that there's some type of wall here, that this does not continue, that this does not get passed down, and that we can salvage like the mental and emotional health of the people that have been directly impacted by this.
Right.
And, I think it is about us coming together and having these conversations about allowing ourselves to be open and honest about what our experiences are, how it's impacting, affecting us. I will say this, like, as a Jewish man, like, I came into this experience a year and a half ago, not knowing enough. And what happened to me is I just said, hey, I'm going to talk to Israelis. I'm going to talk to Palestinians. Like, I want to get the story. And then through talking to both, I was like, oh, like the Israelis are gaslighting the fuck out of me. And like, but I do shit on them to say, but it's like, but it was also like, hey, um, I was able to see the real raw experience and be in it and say, no, like, this is not okay. And I think the more that we come together and have these conversations, the more that we are able to speak to the American public and have the American citizens know this is what your tax dollars are going to, like, this is the raw visceral impact. This is how it's impacting and affecting us, right? Um, I think people's humanity turns back on. Like, we have to reconnect people to their humanity. They have to feel a connection to what's occurring. They have to feel the anger. They have to feel the rage. They have to feel the sadness and the grief, because that's the catalyst to saying no,
You are
no
absolutely.
more.
And
Right?
let me interject real quick. In a world where the population is being bombarded with
Yeah.
useless nonsense all the
Useless.
time, on your TikTok feed, on your Instagram feed, on TV, movies, the media, the news, where you're constantly being fed stuff like the Met Gala and,
Yeah.
uh, don't get me wrong, I love basketball, but like the NBA playoffs or NFL football, honestly, none of this shit matters when your tax dollars are actively funding
Yeah.
the murder of children. I'm sorry, like all of that stuff is secondary, but in a world where all of this shit is being fed to you, we have to start providing a constant stream of accountability, of
Yeah.
reality to
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
to actually be in touch with, whoa,
Yeah.
beyond this screen, beyond this digital apparatus, there's a world where the money I make and the things I do affect the
Yeah.
greater world around me.
Yeah.
And I can't be just so consumed in my screen and my time. I have to think about the real world.
Yeah.
And even with my Instagram, what I've tried to do is tell people shit that they honestly would never probably know. A lot of them
Yeah.
don't even, care to watch the news anymore. And if they do, they get sold complete
Yeah.
corporate bullshit that they've been told to tell people. And so
Yeah.
it's like, at what point do you start actually realizing what's going on around
Yeah.
you? At what
Yeah.
point do you wake up and realize, oh shit, we are, and I hate saying this because it feels like such a cliche, that we are living in a matrix. We're living in
Yeah.
this bullshit, like,
Yeah. We are
constant bombardment of just
nonsense.
mindless entertainment and
Yeah.
nonsense, and none of it in the greater scheme matters at all. Like, as a
Yeah.
human being on earth in 2025, the Boston Celtics winning the NBA finals does not personally affect anything in my fucking life, but I know people that will watch every second, every minute, every game, and make it their life mission to tell
Yeah.
you all about it, post about it, be about it, while their tax dollars are funding
Yeah.
your children. And that's
Well,
the part that makes it sad. And I know for a lot of people, this is an escape, right? Life
yeah.
is tough. Life sucks. Life's hard. But that doesn't give you an excuse to ignore your financial responsibility to where your money goes.
Yeah.
Because you are impacting the world, whether you realize it or not. You and I, right now, we're impacting it.
Yeah.
Whether
Well,
we,
I just don't think we all know what to do yet. right? Like our government feels like we work for our government doesn't work for us. And so I don't think we know what to do yet. That's not an excuse, but like, um, I think Americans in general, like we're all brainwashed. You're brainwashed from the time we're young. The fucking music we listen to, the television we watch. Like I was watching MTV at 12. I mean, it was garbage,
Yeah,
you
same
know?
way.
Yeah.
I was watching MTV, VH1. I got in high school. I was watching Jersey Shore. Like
Yeah.
this was the shit
Flavor of
that
love,
I
bro.
grew up.
Flavor of love.
You know, like I was like, these guys are so cool. Like
Yeah.
these were the people sold to us as cool society, good society, and it's just like
Yeah.
you grow up and you realize that was all bullshit.
Yeah.
All of it was bullshit, and it's like I don't know. Like in this, we have such a short lifespan.
Yeah.
The average human life has gone so quick. I asked myself, did we do anything worthwhile during that time? And if we didn't, what a waste. Like
Yeah.
if you spent all your time watching VH1 and caring about a professional sports organization that doesn't give a fuck about you, like the Dallas Mavericks, who I do not support anymore at all, and I do not affiliate myself, even though I am a Dallas boy at heart. I am a Luca fan, so
Yeah.
wherever Luca goes, that is where my loyalty will go. Although I hate rooting for the Lakers as well. So, but what I'm trying to say is be about something,
Yeah.
stand for something, make your life matter. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying people's lives don't matter if they don't want to do that, but for fuck's sake, like at least pay attention. You
Yeah.
know, like
Well, here's the thing. I think us as people, like we have to come together, and this has been something that's happened throughout human history, right? I mean, this is literally what like the Ten Commandments were, of like we have to have a baseline set of rules and laws, of like of like collective boundaries that we say this doesn't happen, and if it does, we work together to stop it right now. And we've seen that we don't have that.
no,
We
we've had
have
to
the
throw all the
illusion of
laughs.
that, but no, like no child should ever should ever die from war.
And you
Yeah,
know, this is a great segue for I think we should bring up this topic. It's our
yeah,
very last topic.
yeah,
It's Kashmir. It's
yeah,
India and Pakistan. And it's a
yeah,
great example of what you're talking about.
yeah,
So we thought after the Nuremberg trials, after Nazi Germany, World War II, we thought we established international laws that were
yeah,
thought to be followed and actually acted upon. After Israel's impunity for the
yeah,
last year and a half, we're seeing the ramifications of that around the world now.
yeah,
And this is exactly what you're talking about. You know, there has to be a collective set of rules and laws that just don't work for individuals, but work for the greater good for a
yeah,
community. And not just on a national level, on an international level. That was
yeah,
the whole fucking point of the UN, which, if you ask me at this point in time, is just a symbolic body. It
yeah.
really does not stand
No, it doesn't
to
say for
mean
anything.
anything. Everything it puts out is verbal.
Yeah,
And that's all it is. It's a verbal statement. And essentially what's happened in Kashmir, which, you know, if people don't know listening, like I am part Kashmiri, like
yeah,
occupied Kashmir. Like my grandmother had to leave the area, like that recent, and immigrate to Pakistan. And what you're seeing is unjustified terrorist attacks from India. And I'm not condoning or saying what happened in occupied Kashmir was justified, but it was by a militant group to
yeah,
attack a sovereign country and kill children. Sounds very much like what we've seen the
yeah,
last year and a half. And guess what? It would have never happened if someone didn't break the first law or didn't
yeah,
set the example or wasn't punished or hasn't been held
yeah,
accountable. Well, people start going, well, who the fuck's going to hold me accountable? They're holding no one else accountable. You got
right,
Russia and Ukraine. You got, you know, Israel and Gaza. You got the UAE and Sudan.
yeah,
Kids are dying. Kids are
yeah,
dying. And yes, Gaza is, the kids are dying in masses. And these other places, kids are dying here and there.
yeah,
Sudan is justified. Like they have a lot of loss too. But once people start seeing this, countries start seeing this, cruel men looking for ambition in the world start seeing this, like the Prime
yeah,
Minister of India,
yeah,
Modi, people will 100% take advantage. It's a matter of
yeah,
time. It's not
yeah,
if, it's when.
yeah,
And I'm seeing that play out. You know, personally, I pray for peace. I pray nothing escalates. Even Pakistan, and which, don't get me wrong, the Pakistani government is one of the most corrupt governments in the world. It's one of the
yeah,
only governments that'll suppress their own people to such
Yeah.
an extreme.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know the story of Imran Khan, the last prime minister of Pakistan. He was the first like popular elected prime minister. Tried to do a few good things. They put his ass in prison immediately. He's been in prison for like the last 3, 4 years. He was the first one to break away from U.S. like hegemony, be like, hey, we're not fighting this fake war on
Yeah.
terror in
Yeah.
Afghanistan anymore. He aligned himself with China. He
Yeah.
started doing everything America didn't like, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly in prison. What is he in prison for? The Pakistani courts claim he had an illegal marriage with his second wife. I'm not lying. That's why he's in prison.
Yeah.
And it's like when good people are pushed out, corrupt
Yeah.
politicians get in power. And honestly, the Pakistani government's probably salivating on this. They're saying,
Yeah.
oh, shit,
Yeah.
we have an opportunity to keep our stranglehold because the people were pushing back
Yeah.
against the government. They're saying, we have no rights. You guys are
Yeah.
pretty much keeping us in a military state. But now India thinks it's done the people of Pakistan a favor. It's
Yeah.
put them in a precarious situation where if they don't respond, India looks like they can do whatever without impunity.
Yeah.
And then not just India, but any country that wants to
Yeah.
strike Pakistan looks like, oh, well, they're not going to do shit. So
Yeah.
you have to strike, right? That's
Yeah.
like it's strategic thinking. It's
Yeah.
international foreign policy. And it's sad because both are nuclear countries
Yeah.
and things could go really bad really fast. I mean, people
Yeah.
don't realize this is the equivalent of like if China bombed parts of America,
Yeah.
what would America do? Because
Yeah.
both have nuclear warheads, both
Yeah.
have, significant populations. Now what? And that's why I think, like, yes, we're playing it up. I heard JD Vance earlier say, it doesn't concern us, India, Pakistan. It is what it is. They have to deal with it. I just thought it was so ironic he said that, but then he's balls deep in Israel and Gaza.
Yeah.
So I, it's just interesting to see the dynamic and how it's playing out. And I don't know what happens next.
Yeah.
Like, what's to stop China from just moving on Taiwan and being like, it's
Yeah.
ours. See ya.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, I mean, look, once again, you're bringing up a great point because you're bringing up the causal factors here. Like when one country breaches like the most basic element of human morality in terms of we're allowed to murder children, then suddenly other power-hungry leaders say, "Oh, like I've had no moral compass either, but like I was kept in check because I thought there was an illusion of some type of, international force that would hold me accountable. Oh, wait, there's not. So now I'm going to do it too." And we are seeing the literal breakdown in any type of capacity to hold someone accountable or responsible for the most heinous war crimes. And that may have the illusion of that may have been the only thing keeping these horrifically corrupt and insidious leaders in check. And that's gone away now. And obviously, what happened in Pakistan is devastating. I don't know nearly enough yet. It's something I'm going to have to continue to learn. I'm getting my information bit by bit lately. Um, but we're just
I
seeing
mean,
the
I
fallout.
think it's important because there's a lot of videos
Yeah,
on Gaza and Palestine, but there's not enough
yeah,
on what's happened in Kashmir. And justifiably, it is pretty recent. What happened in Israel and Palestine was Hamas came in and attacked
yeah,
that music festival on October 7th. And then what happened was collective punishment
yeah,
on Gaza, Palestine as a whole,
yeah,
which is pretty much what India did. A militant group that they claim, without any evidence, there's no evidence, solid evidence linking this militant group to Pakistan,
yeah,
went in and killed 25 tourists in occupied Kashmir. Let me remind you once again, it's occupied Kashmir. The reason there are militants is because they're fighting for what they think is freedom,
yeah,
right? That's what this all comes down. Same with the Hamas shit.
yeah,
People just woke up one day and said, let's go kill those people over there.
yeah,
That's not how either of these situations are, okay? They're fighting for their self-determination. And if you tell an American that, they completely forget how the Americans during the Revolutionary War
yeah,
did ridiculous things to get their self-determination. The Boston Tea Party,
yeah,
literally tarring and feathering British soldiers. I mean, ridiculous shit. But what my point is, some people are saying it's a false flag. I don't know if it's a false flag, but what I do know is they use it as a catalyst to launch a full-scale attack on a country and kill children and women that have nothing to
yeah,
do
yeah,
with that attack.
yeah,
It's literally textbook. And then the biggest irony, India sent several drones over Pakistani cities over the last
Mm.
couple of days, manufactured in Israel.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
they downed those drones and they looked. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's part of a greater strategy. You know,
Yeah.
I had someone suggest to me that Pakistan, if you think about it logically, Pakistan borders Iran. If Pakistan becomes unstable, Pakistan is
Yeah.
one of the only is the only Muslim nuclear country in the world. If it
Mm.
becomes unstable, maybe it's a way to justify somehow getting Iran involved and then attacking Iran. You know, you never know.
Yeah.
People are
Yeah.
thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead, you know,
Yeah.
so yeah. Well, there's a little bit of current
No, it's important. It's important. I'm glad you shared, and I think this needs more coverage. I don't know
I think
nearly
it
enough.
definitely needs
Um,
more coverage in the sense of it is a lot bigger than people think. You know,
yeah,
people, this isn't just two random countries
yeah,
fighting it out. These are two nuclear powers
yeah,
that have billions. India has 2 billion people. Pakistan, I think, has 57, 56 million. They have a lot of people too. Probably, I mean, they possibly have a lot more. I just am mixing
yeah,
up numbers, but it's a lot of people, a lot of our infrastructure, American
yeah,
infrastructure is supported by India, like call
yeah,
centers and all this shit. So whether
yeah,
you realize it or not, we all affect each other in one way or shape or another.
yeah,
As individualized as American society, as Western
yeah,
society likes to think like, oh, it's all about me, fuck you
yeah,
guys. We are all connected, whether you want to
yeah.
agree with that or not. It's the truth.
We all are. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
all right.
Thank you for watching today's episode. Obviously, today was a little bit different in terms of just being human and really talking about the human elements of this. And I think both Bill and I feel that this is what's missing right now
Absolutely.
from these conversations. And we can only be drones with facts for so long. This is so much deeper and bigger than that.
Very
Um,
true. Very
and
true. It's a
yeah,
conversation that needed to happen. It's a
that's
conversation
it.
that supersedes current events.
Yeah.
So,
All
all
right, my
right.
man. Thank you for everyone watching and check in for the next one. Peace.